Hello all, this is Barbara Mann from Your Empowered You, and welcome to our short video on Is Adversity Necessary for Prosperity? And the answer is yes, it is. And in this video, we're going to be talking about, mostly in the workplace, I'm really gearing this towards the workplace, of why is adversity needed? What do we really learn from adversity in the workplace, and how to kind of navigate through it successfully? So why is adversity necessary? Well, it's really how we learn and it's really how we grow. So one thing we know is whether we're a leader or an individual contributor, there are going to be things that come our way where maybe we made a mistake, maybe it's an extremely challenging situation, but it's some sort of adverse situation going on. And it's really how we learn and we challenge ourselves, we get through it, we navigate through things successfully. And the other thing that, we want to think about when we're going through those sort of adverse times, it gives us a basis for comparison for future events. And maybe not when you're currently going through it, but for future events, it's really needed to understand, okay, is this like really a problem or is this really not that big of a deal? It also helps us to identify hidden and sometimes obvious problems. And what I mean by that is sometimes the problem is out in the open, but you just don't do anything about it. Obviously, those are things that forces us to act to finally do something. But sometimes there's some hidden problems that have finally come to the surface, and we have to act on those as well. But really, when those problems arise, whether they're hidden or whether they're obvious, really forces us to act because we've got to do something, especially in the workplace. If you're a leader and you have an issue, it's up to us as leaders to take care of it. For individual contributors, same thing. It's up to us if we identify a problem. It's all of our responsibility to try to rectify whatever issue is going on. So these are things that, it forces us to do something. And that's why sometimes these things, this adversity is very healthy in the workplace to get things done, to rectify those issues. So some of the things that we learn is, how do you successfully navigate through future issues? So maybe, you had some sort of adverse situation go on in the workplace and, you look back on it and maybe you think, maybe I could have done this differently. Maybe I should have done this differently. And it helps us, just like anything in life, to successfully navigate future events, because if it happens again, you'll know how to handle the situation. We talked about this ability to compare the situation. This is important. It really actually helped me as a manager when I was new in my career. I remember taking over an operation and it was really very challenging. Now, I was a pretty new manager and didn't really understand the scope of what needed to be done. I just kind of plugged away and did the best that I could and learned a ton from that situation. But what it gave me is the ability to compare future operations to that real super mess of a situation. And I was able to actually go into operations and think, you know what? This isn't that big of a deal. It just needs this, that, and the other. So it really gave me a way to compare future or present issues and then future issues that came my way. It helps us to avoid potential issues. So now that we've experienced whatever the process issue might be, the personnel issue, whatever, it helps us to avoid those future issues so we can be proactive and not have those problems in the future. So if we have some sort of process that isn't working, it allows us to fix it, but not just that, is to head off future issues. Personnel could be the same type of thing. Maybe someone isn't healthy for your culture. Maybe you want to make sure that you hire a certain person who adapts well to your culture. I mean, these are kinds of things that if you didn't go through certain situations, you wouldn't be able to identify who you maybe want to hire, or who's going to be a great manager, who we need to groom, who we need to, do other kinds of personnel type of movement issues. But the point is that it really helps us to think about the future and how to avoid certain problems. So it's imperative to go through whatever adversity it is to help us in the future. So how do you kind of navigate when you're going through a situation like, some sort of adverse situation? Now, for me, as a leader, maybe it has something to do with, you have personnel issues, you have potentially metrics where maybe you're not meeting them, maybe you have a bad audit, maybe you have some sort of customer service issue that is very, very, very touchy and needs to be handled, with kid gloves. So how do you kind of navigate through those situations? Well, the first thing that I highly recommend is you got to just accept the circumstance and not resist it. Just accept whatever it is, the circumstance, the result, the problem. Don't resist it. Now, our natural inclination for some of us, maybe we're processing and our first one is to resist, but the faster that we can remove that resistance and just accept what's going on, the better. And staying in control of the situation. If you need to process information, that's fine, but just staying in control of your emotions. If it's something where you need to, leave the room or you need to leave the office or whatever the case may be, just maintaining control is really important, especially as a leader, but also as individual contributors. Just being in control of your emotions is very, very important on how to kind of navigate when we're going through these adversity. Next thing, what I recommend is a lot of collaboration. So suppose, there's some sort of big issue out there. Collaboration and input from peers and colleagues, really helps to get the buy-in from everybody to solve the problem. There are lots of people who are very talented, have great solutions out there. Bring them in. Bring in as many people to help and have the buy-in as possible. Identify the root problem. So the reason I'm bringing these up, and I've talked about a lot of these things in prior issues, is because when you're dealing with, again, adversity, if you don't identify the root problem, it will come again. So identifying the root problem, not putting Band-Aids on it, will help you for future situations so you won't go through that same adverse situation. So we've got collaboration input, we're identifying the root problems, we're creating the plan, creating the buy-in, you're communicating it to your staff and to your peers and to your colleague, and then you just execute that plan. The reason these steps are important is because if you don't go through these steps and you just put Band-Aids, a quick fix, and just hope it goes away, it's not going to go away. It's going to happen again. So this is also about how you effectively you effectively navigate through the problem, and you're proactively avoiding a future problem. So that's very important. But again, accepting that circumstance is the first critical step. Don't put your head in the sand. Don't resist it. Just kind of go with the flow and stay in control. So let's wrap this up in a bow. Kind of summarize what we chatted about. Adversity is going to happen. We know it's going to happen. No career is probably free of some sort of surprise situation that we weren't counting on. So it's going to happen regardless of any level of employee, whether you are a brand new employee, you're in the middle of your career, you're at the end of your career, you're probably going to have something happen. Adversity just happens, The great thing is that over time, you're able to handle it a lot more smoothly because you've gone through what we talked about. It's necessary for growth. It's necessary for comparisons, and that is key. You can identify if something's a big deal or it's not. Over time and through my experiences, when I would have employees come to me and say, "Oh my God, this is happening, and this, I don't know what we're going to do. This is bad." And I looked at it and thought, no, this isn't that big of a deal. But the only reason I was able to do that is because I could compare it to something. I had a lot of comparison and experience under my belt, so it's definitely necessary for that. We talked about how to handle it. Accept it and don't resist. When we resist things, it makes things far more difficult to handle. Stay in control. Always maintain that control of your emotions. If we need to process the information, which a lot of us do, I do too, Handle it as you see fit, but staying in control. When again, leave the building, leave the office, go home for a bit if you can, or just kind of stay quiet. However you handle it, is best. And then finally, come up with your plan and communicate. But do not put band-aids on problems. Get to those root of the problems, pluck that weed, and avoid future issues. So I hope you've enjoyed our very quick video on really going from adversity to prosperity. And for additional resources or to schedule a session with me, please visit my website at www.youремpoweredyou.com. You can email me at bman@youремpoweredyou.com, or you can contact me via telephone at 916-633-2555. And I thank you very much and have a very empowered day.